My daughter-in-law's family is coming over. The shocking price for Christmas at my home, the snow was falling like a thick white curtain, wrapping everything in a delicate layer of frost. But inside, the air was charged with tension, and the impending arrival of Brenda's family transformed my cozy home into a pressure cooker. I could practically feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on my chest. It wasn't just any family gathering, it was the occasion where judgment was as thick as the pie I'd prepared. And oh, did they love to judge. Brenda insisted it would be perfectly fine, but the moment I saw the number of people piling into my small living room, I knew I was wrong. Her parents, both meticulous and hypercritical, strode in like they owned the place. They brought with them an energy that crackled in the air, sending shivers down my spine. I fidgeted while trying to keep a smile, gripping that old wooden table like it was my last lifeline. Suddenly, the door swung open, slamming against the wall. The wind howled, almost as if warning me of the storm lurking behind those doors. My breath caught as Brenda's brother stepped in, attired in an outrageous Christmas sweater that screamed, "Look at me." I could see the others eyeing him, every snicker felt like a dagger aimed straight at my culinary confidence. What was the price of this gathering really going to be? As dinner time approached, the atmosphere grew thick with unspoken words and lingering glances. I watched their faces closely, nervous energy turning my stomach into knots. The garlic bread, once a pride of mine, now looked like a failed experiment under their scrutinizing gazes. This was not just family, this was an interrogation. Somewhere, beneath the laughter and jokes, was the haunting knowledge: one slip, one bad dish, and my reputation could unravel faster than my grandmother's yarn. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The table was set, the food laid out, yet my hands were shaking as I served the cranberry sauce. What if it was too tart? What if they didn't like my chocolate log cake? Just then, a hush fell over the room. Brenda's mom lifted a fork, trembling like the leaves outside. Her eyes gleamed with an intensity that struck fear deep within me. "What's in this sauce?" she asked, her voice slicing through the air like a knife. No one was breathing. Eyes darted around, tension simmering as I stammered an answer. The room felt like it was closing in, shadows creeping along the walls. The night stretched on, tightly wound with expectation and dread. But suddenly, a muffled sound came from outside, a howl that felt like a warning. I glanced toward the window, my pulse racing. What was happening out there? And what would be the price for my holiday cheer? Panic gripped me as I tried to regain my composure. Brenda's mother was still staring at the cranberry sauce, her eyes narrowing. I could feel the frost outside seep into the walls, chilling my resolve. The howl from the wind had intensified, creating an eerie symphony that echoed in my ears, drowning out the muffled laughter and forced banter from the other guests. Was this just a storm? Or something far worse? I recalled the tales of howling spirits, warning parents to behave or face the wrath of those dragged into the night. Shivers crept down my spine, but I couldn't allow that thought to fester. This gathering was supposed to be a joyous occasion, not a haunted nightmare. As I turned to check the windows, Brenda's brother broke the stillness. "So, who cooked this?" "It looks interesting," he said, grinning like a Cheshire cat, clearly enjoying the discomfort unfolding before him. His words hovered like a weight in the air, thickening the tension. I felt the heat rising to my cheeks, embarrassment pinching me tightly. "That would be me," I said, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. The chuckles from his parents and the knowing glance exchanged between them felt like a trial I was doomed to lose. Then, as if the universe was conspiring against me, a loud crash rang out from the kitchen, shattering the fragile atmosphere. Everyone froze. My heart lurched. Had I left something cooking unattended? Did anyone else hear that? Brenda's father asked, a peculiar mix of curiosity and concern in his tone. I nodded, swallowing hard. I'll just check. With shaky legs, I maneuvered around the table, dodging glances that were now filled with a mix of intrigue and skepticism. As I made my way to the kitchen, the soft glow from the overhead light cast eerie shadows on the walls. The crunch of broken glass beneath my feet echoed around me, amplifying the unsettling silence. When I reached the kitchen, my breath caught in my throat. The floor was covered in shards of a decorative serving tray my grandmother's. That stupid tray had held so many memories, from Thanksgiving dinners to celebrations of every kind. But now, it lay shattered, pieces of it reflecting the light like 1,000 tiny, broken dreams. Just as I bent down to collect the pieces, a gust of wind blasted through the open back door, slamming it shut and rattling the windows. I darted back to the living room, heart pounding in my chest, but the chill in the air seemed to grow more oppressive. I could feel eyes on me as I stepped back in, my hands trembling from the combination of nerves and the eerie happenings around me. Everything is fine, I stammered, but the shaky tone in my voice betrayed me. Are you sure? Brenda's mom arched an eyebrow, skepticism lacing her words. Things don't seem quite right here. The tension was suffocating. I saw Brenda frowning, but before I could speak, there was another crash, this time, from outside. Everyone exchanged alarmed looks as shadows danced beyond the window. My pulse quickened as new, frantic noises joined the wind's howl, a cacophony of chaos edging closer. My mind raced. What if our Christmas gathering was one colossal setup? But just as I was about to voice my fears, an unsettling thought slipped into my mind. What if the price of this gathering was more than I had anticipated? As I stared into the cold, dark night, I realized our little family dinner had just become a battleground of uncertainties. What had I invited into my home, and how would I escape the storm brewing outside and within? My heart was racing, each beat echoing the chaos that lurked outside. What was happening? Fear clawed at my throat. I glanced around the living room, where the shadows seemed deeper, the silence heavier. Brenda's brother leaned closer to the window, peering through the glass. Did you see that? He murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His expression had shifted from amusement to genuine concern. See what? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. He turned, eyes wide. There is something out there. Something moving, and I don't think it's just the storm. Before I could respond, Brenda's mom shot up from her seat. If it's a trick or a prank, she warned, it's gone too far. Just then, the lights flickered, adding to the surreal atmosphere. I felt the air grow thicker, stifling. The world outside seemed intent on crashing in, making me acutely aware that we were not alone within these walls. What do you mean by out there? Brenda asked, her voice barely masking the tremor of fear. She had moved to stand beside her brother, both of them now transfixed by the dark landscape beyond the window. I edged forward hesitantly, joining them. Outside, the snow swirled in a frenzy, wind whipping it into ghostly shapes that danced beneath the dim light of the yard. Then, amidst the blizzard, I saw a figure. A silhouette. Just a trick of the light, surely. But no, it moved closer, a form that seemed impossibly familiar yet unnaturally distorted. My breath caught in my throat. Did you see that? I asked, voice shaking. What? Brenda's brother sounded breathless, eyes never leaving the sight beyond the glass. It looks like Aunt Clara. That name sent chills through me. Aunt Clara had passed away years ago. Worry gripped my chest tighter, squeezing out any remaining assurance. My mind raced. What were the odds she could be out there? Yet the figure was too tall, its features too twisted. The wind howled louder, and the room trembled with each gust. Glasses rattled on the table, and the lights dimmed again before a piercing scream erupted from the shadows outside. It echoed around us, full of desperation and pain. Brenda jumped back. That's not right. What is happening? Who is out there? Brenda's mom asked, visibly shaken, her composure fracturing. I don't know, I stammered, gripped by both fear and an unshakable urge to understand. But we need to stay calm. Maybe it's just the storm, maybe. But deep down, an unsettling certainty festered. As we stood there, frozen, the power flickered, plunging us into darkness. The howling wind stopped, leaving only an ominous silence. Panic gripped me, and I could feel every heartbeat thundering in my ears. Brenda moved back toward the table, fumbling for her phone, but the screen was black. Why isn't it working? She gasped, glancing at me in a mix of fear and confusion. When a faint glimmer of light burst through a nearby window, illuminating the living room in an eerie glow, the silhouette was gone. The depths of the night swallowed it whole, leaving us in chaos. The door creaked, sending a wave of unease through the air. The weight of dread settled deeper into my bones. What was out there? A mere figment of a storm? Or had we somehow drawn something far more sinister into our gathering? I took a deep breath, fighting against the mounting fear. But as I steadied myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was lurking out there had come for us, and it was just biding its time. What price would we pay for this Christmas? And would we survive the night? The silence stretched, heavy and unnerving. We stood there, a cluster of anxious bodies, unsure of what to do next. My heart raced louder, beating a frantic rhythm against my ribcage as if trying to break free. What if it's not Aunt Clara? Brenda uttered, her voice tremulous. What if it's something else? Her brother shook his head vehemently. No, it can't be anything else. It has to be her, he insisted, his brows knitted tight. I caught the edge of stubbornness in his voice, a desperate grasping at certainty in the face of the unimaginable. Brenda glanced at the door, her eyes full of doubt. We can't just stand here. We need to check. Panic surged in me. Check what? No. We can't go out there. But Brenda's mom seemed to draw strength from the rising tension. If it is Aunt Clara, we owe it to her to see what she wants, she declared, her voice hardening. A sense of authority took over her shaken demeanor, pushing us back towards the front door. A rustle came from the shadows, and for a moment, I swore I saw something swirling in the corner of my vision. My stomach knotted tighter, the urge to flee battling with the innate human curiosity to unravel the mystery. Before we could decide our next move, a loud crash rocked the house. It sounded like thunder, but it echoed directly from the back door. The sound of glass shattering splintered the silence, followed by frantic scratching, like nails tearing at wood. Stay put. Brenda's mom shouted, but the urgency in her voice twisted that command. Without thinking, she rushed towards the din, driven by the need to confront whatever chaos lurked in our backyard. I wanted to scream for her to stop, but my voice had vanished, lost in the storm brewing in my chest. The others followed her guardedly, their eyes wide, carving shadows on the walls that danced in the flickering light. Brenda motioned for me to join, her face pale but resolute. A rush of adrenaline coursed through me, urging me forward despite my instincts. We stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the cold air stabbing at my skin like icy daggers, and then we were at the door. The wind screeched, trying to claw its way past us, urging us to turn back. Only the flickering glow from our living room illuminated the space, casting ominous shapes against the floor. Brenda's mom gripped the doorknob, rattling it with a determination that chilled me. On three. She shouted, her voice almost drowned by the wind. 1, 2. The moment stretched long, suspended in the tension binding us together. I held my breath, panic flooding my senses as the door creaked open under her force, revealing the depth of the storm beyond. The world outside the threshold was no longer familiar. Beneath the swirling snow, tall, twisted trees groaned, their branches reaching like skeletal hands across a dark sky. And then we saw it, a figure standing amidst the storm, its features obscured. What the hell? Brenda whispered, gripping my arm tight. The silhouette turned and, in the brief flash of lightning, I caught a glimpse of it, the unmistakable features of Aunt Clara, but wrong. Distorted, as if the storm itself had reshaped her, thunder clapped, and the lights flickered again, casting a momentary but clear image of her. Her eyes were wild, filled with fear and something darker. Something that siphoned the warmth from my heart. Just as I stepped closer, drawn against my better judgment, she raised an arm, pointing at something behind me. "Run!" She screamed, but the sound was barely a whisper against the raging wind. Before we could react, the darkness surged forward. It twisted and morphed, creeping towards us, hungry and insatiable, and in that moment, clarity struck. Whatever was outside wasn't just a ghost. It was a warning, a malevolent force seeking to consume all it touched. What would we do now? Time slipped away as we faced the unknown. With the door wide open, we were left with a choice: stay in the safety of the house or plunge into chaos. The question lingered in the air, heavy with dread. As another scream echoed in the distance, I realized there was still more I didn't understand. What was the price of knowing the truth? And could we escape before it was too late? I stumbled back, my heart pounding like a war drum. The silhouette of Aunt Clara twisted and collapsed like a shadow, swallowed whole by the frigid storm outside. It felt as if every instinct screamed for me to protect myself, to run. "Close the door!" I shouted, my voice barely cutting through the howling wind. But as my eyes darted back to the doorway, I realized it was already too late. Whatever that dark mass was, it was no longer just a figment of our imagination. It surged towards us, eager to breach our sanctuary. "Brenda!" I cried, grabbing her shoulder. "We have to go," but Brenda's expression caught me off guard. She stood frozen, tears pooling in her eyes, a mixture of fear and defiance etched deep in her frown. "We can't leave her." It was a statement filled with fiery conviction, as if she believed Aunt Clara's plight was somehow our responsibility. What if she's not even our Aunt Clara anymore? I countered, horrified by the thought, my words barely a breath against the roaring storm. Brenda shook her head, fists clenched. But before we could argue further, the shadows around us seemed to pulse with rage, twisting under the flickering light. It felt alive. "Get back!" Brenda's brother shouted, and in one swift motion, he shoved both of us away from the doorframe. A wave of cold air rushed in, pushing at us like the hands of 1,000 desperate souls. "That thing outside isn't Aunt Clara. It's something else," he yelled, his voice rising to a near-capital shout. The tension snapped like a tight string as we collectively flinched. All at once, something akin to understanding hit me. The barn. We could try to make it to the barn, I suggested, scanning the darkened horizon beyond the door. "We could hide until we know what is going on." Brenda's mom, still holding fast to the doorknob, hesitated, glancing at the swirling storm. "But how?" Her voice broke, mirroring our fear. "It's not safe." "It's not safe here either," I insisted. Brenda nodded slowly, her fear melting into something steely. "We can't give up on Aunt Clara, but we can't expose ourselves to whatever that is." She motioned toward the door. With one last glance behind her, Brenda's mom gritted her teeth and opened the door wider. The wind blasted us, icy fingers gripping our bodies, shaking our resolve. "On my count," she urged, urgency sharpening her tone. 1, 2, 3. Just like that, we barreled out into the storm, the world around us a white whirl of suffocating ice. I could barely see, but I pushed forward, feeling the others hot on my heels. The barn loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the flurry of snow, but with every step I took, unsettling whispers seemed to close in around us. Words in a language I didn't understand danced through the air, taunting, wrapping around my skin. I turned my head, but all I could see was the swirling tempest, threatening to drag us back toward the unknown. That we stumbled through the drifts, breathless, hearts racing as the barn came closer. Brenda's brother suddenly spun around, eyes wide. "What if we're not alone out here?" he gasped, fists shaking. "What do you mean?" I dared to ask, dread pooling in my stomach. And then, as if on cue, the shadows at the edge of our vision stirred. Shapes moved with an eerie calmness against the chaos, their outlines shifting, seeming to watch us intently, hunger gleaming in what should have been empty eyes. "What are they waiting for?" Brenda murmured, dread tightening her grip. I could feel the air growing colder, the stench of decay leaking in, clinging to our clothes, whispering warnings so sweet they turned nauseous. Were we running towards safety or deeper into danger? As we reached the barn door, I felt it then, a pulsating, vibrating presence behind us, pushing against my back, urging us onward. I glanced over my shoulder one last time, only to see a wall of darkness creeping our way faster than we could move. "Now!" I screamed, as we lunged for the door, pounding it open with all the strength we could muster. But just as we dashed inside, the air shifted again. It was static and charged, filled with a malevolent glee. And then I heard it, the sound of laughter, sharp and cruel, echoing from the shadows that enveloped us. What had we unleashed, and would we survive this night? As the barn door slammed shut behind us, locking out the storm, I realized the real nightmare was just beginning. The barn was dark, a massive, hulking presence shrouded in stale air and the scent of old hay. Our footsteps echoed dully against the wooden slats, the sound swallowed by the oppressive darkness. I barely had time to catch my breath when that laughter reached us again, taunting, distant, and yet undeniably close. "Did you hear that?" Brenda's brother whispered, wide-eyed. His voice trembled, and suddenly the bravado seemed to slip away like a shadow at dawn. "Shoo!" Brenda snapped, wide-eyed, her pulse vibrating in her throat. "We need to be quiet." Just as she spoke, another chilling laugh rang through the barn, sending a cascade of shivers down my spine. It was joined by more voices, their whispers weaving through the beams like an ominous tapestry. Panicked breaths caught in my throat. I scanned the darkness, but saw nothing but a void, a heavy, dense void that felt alive. "We need light," I murmured, my hands shaking as I fumbled in my pockets for matches. My fingers brushed the cool metal of a flashlight, and I yanked it free with an urgency that filled me with hope. "Here," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Cracking open the flashlight, its beam sliced through the darkness, revealing rows of old equipment, dusty tools, and the cold silhouette of farm machinery. Yet shadows danced at the edges, skirting away from the light as if stung by it. "Look!" Brenda pointed toward a far corner of the barn. It was a trapdoor, partially ajar, dark tendrils of shadow spilling out. "What if there is something down there?" "Or worse," I replied, feeling the weight of dread pressing down. "What could lie beneath? Something horrible, perhaps." But standing still felt worse than the potential horrors lurking below. "Do we go down?" Brenda's voice quivered, and I could see her hands tremble in the flashlight's glow. Before I could respond, a loud thud reverberated through the barn. The trapdoor shuddered, closing slightly, and a bone-chilling silence settled upon us. Something was moving under the floor. "We have to decide," I urged, glancing back towards the door, knowing it wouldn't hold against whatever was outside for long. "Now." Brenda and her brother exchanged a look, one full of fear but seeping with determination. "Let us get this done," she finally spoke, turning toward the trapdoor that we crept forward, the flashlight beam wavering as I tried to steady my hands. I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. Whatever was lurking down there, we would confront it together. As we eased the trapdoor open further, an otherworldly cold rushed up from below, swirling around us like fog. It whispered a dreadful promise, wrapping around each of our bodies, and I could feel it seep into my bones. For a moment, the air crackled with tension, as if the universe held its breath in unison with us. "Do you hear that?" Brenda's brother murmured, eyes strained and fixed downward. It was a low hum, almost melodic, echoing from the abyss beneath us. "I don't like this," I managed, the air growing thick, its taste heavy with something sickeningly sweet. Adrenaline surged as I leaned forward, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. And then, as if the darkness had yielded its grip, I caught sight of shapes down below, writhing shadows blending in and out of focus. Whatever was down there, it was eager to meet us. "Let us go," Brenda shouted, a fire igniting in her eyes. There was no more time to hesitate. With a hard push against the bulky trapdoor, we descended into the unknown, the world above us fading away into silence. The moment we stepped down, that haunting laughter echoed again, louder, reverberating around these chambers of secrets. The light flickered, and then went out. And just like that, we were plunged into darkness, faces illuminated by nothing but sheer terror. What lay ahead? What awaited us in the depths of that sinister darkness? The darkness enveloped us completely. I could feel the cold creeping through my clothes, wrapping around me like icy fingers. My heart raced, and I wanted to scream, but fear clung to my throat like an invisible noose. "Brenda?" I whispered, my voice barely escaping the pit of my stomach. Panic surged through me as I realized I couldn't even see my friends, only a suffocating void where they should be. "I'm here," her voice trembled from somewhere to my left. "What do we do?" I held the flashlight, but it flickered ominously. "Stay close," I shouted, fighting back the rising dread in my chest. I forced my lighter back into my pocket. It was useless in this abyss. Then, I heard a soft rustling, like something slithering through the darkness. My stomach twisted into knots as I swung the flashlight around, searching for the source. Shadows darted just out of the beam's reach, tantalizingly close yet remaining hidden. "Did you hear that?" Brenda's brother said, his voice thin, vibrating with fear. "It's just the wind," I offered, but my own words rang hollow. The laughter, that dreadful laughter, returned. It faded in and out, twisting around us like a nightmare, wrapping around my mind. "No!" Brenda shouted suddenly. "This isn't right. We should get out." I felt the tug of uncertainty gnawing at me. But the door above us felt like a distant memory. "We can't go back. We have to find out what's down here." The urgency in my voice masked my fear, and then, just when I thought we might remain lost in the dark forever, the flashlight finally sputtered back to life, its beam revealing several grotesque shapes huddled in the corner of the room. My breath hitched, and I nearly dropped the light. They looked like figures flesh-colored, but twisted, with hair like dark roots. Their mouths moved as if chewing on the very air, whispering secrets that sent pricking chills up my spine. "Look!" Brenda cried, pointing with shaking hands. They're watching us." I felt a mixture of dread and anger rush through me. "What do you want?" I demanded, clutching the flashlight tighter. But they wouldn't answer. Instead, one of the figures straightened, its eyes glinting unnaturally in the meager light. My pulse raced as it took a step forward. The laughter filled the air again, echoing against the earthen walls. This was no mere trick of the mind, it was something real, something hungry. "Back!" I shouted, instinct driving me to pull Brenda closer. "We need to find a way up." But the figures only smiled wider, filling the space with a sickening sense of calm, as if they relished our fear. I turned my back on them and tugged at Brenda and her brother's hands. "This way. We need to find another exit." As we stumbled through the darkness, the cold seeped deeper, suffocating and unnerving. The laughter seemed to grow louder, encircling us, feeding on our terror. "Stop!" Brenda's brother shouted, his eyes wide with horror. "Look!" I swung the light over to where he pointed. The shadows were shifting again, coalescing into a larger form, grotesque and towering above us. It was something unthinkable, a creature woven from the very essence of our nightmares. "Run!" My mind screamed, but it was too late. The ground trembled beneath us as the monster lunged, its ghastly face drawing closer, intent on consuming every last shred of our courage, and then everything went black once more. What were they? What did they? The laughter faded, and as it did, so did any certainty of survival. Darkness lingered heavy around us like a suffocating shroud, and the echo of our own dread became our only companion. What awaited us now in this pitch-black nightmare? I jolted awake, breathless, limbs heavy as if caught in quicksand. The darkness pressed down, thick and oppressive, and my heartbeat thudded in my ears. I struggled to focus, every instinct screaming that I had to move, to get out of this nightmare. "Brenda!" I croaked, panic tightening my chest. "Where are you?" "I'm here." That familiar voice floated through the void, but it sounded far away, drifting like a leaf on a turbulent stream. "I can't see anything." I swung the flashlight back to life, the beam cutting a narrow path through the suffocating blackness. At first glance, the small space around us appeared empty, but the cold air whispered of something lurking just beyond the edge of light. "Over there." I pointed the light toward the far wall. The grotesque figures were gone, leaving only the shadows behind. But I could feel their hunger like a living thing, thrumming against my skin. "Where did they go?" Brenda's brother asked, trembling. "No idea," I replied, my pulse racing. "Just, stay alert." The darkness began to shift, each shadow an eerie tapestry woven with memory and dread. I could taste the fear on my tongue, bitter like ashes. The laughter was gone, but it had left a haunting echo that still reverberated in my mind. As I stepped forward, a chill skittered across my back. What if those figures had never left? What if they were waiting, biding their time? A sudden rush of dread threatened to consume me. What if we're trapped? Brenda whimpered, her voice a wavering thread pulling me back. I turned to face her, the worry in her eyes a reflection of my own. "We're not trapped. There has to be a way out. We just need to look." I struggled to mask my own fear, clutching the flashlight as a lifeline. Together, we crept deeper into the suffocating black, each footfall heavy with uncertainty. My breath came in ragged gasps, and the flashlight's beam flickered again, capturing fleeting glimpses of the walls. They seemed to pulse, faintly alive, as if they held secrets of their own. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated through the air, shaking the ground beneath us. I froze, heart pounding in my ears. "Did you hear that?" Brenda whispered, panic threading through her words. Before I could respond, a chilling growl echoed from the dark deep, rumbling, primal. It was closer than before, and the cold terror clawed at my insides. We weren't alone. "We need to go, now," I urged, desperately scanning the shadows for a hint of escape. I grasped Brenda's wrist tightly, pulling her along as we moved quickly, the flashlight beam swinging crazily around us, but then, the faintest flicker of movement caught my eye, something darting between the darkness, too fast to fully see. My stomach dropped. The figures were back, sliding out of the shadows, grotesque shapes emerging in silent unison. The cold laughter resumed, a chorus of mockery that filled the air, wrapping us in chains of terror. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging. We sprinted down what felt like an endless corridor, the light searching for anything that resembled an exit. But as we ran, the growl intensified, resonating in the very bones of the earth around us. In a desperate attempt to lose whatever was stalking us, I swung the flashlight wildly, illuminating echoes of our surroundings. That's when I saw it, a door, half open, beckoning to us from the shadows. "Look, there." I pointed, hope igniting within me, but the moment we approached, the door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. The figures closed in around us, their twisted forms illuminated briefly by the flashlight's flickering beam. They advanced, laughter merging with the growl, a sound saturated with malice. "Please, don't!" Brenda cried, arms wrapping around her brother as we backed up against the wall, hearts racing, and then, with an ear-splitting crack, the darkness exploded, and the world around us shifted violently. Where were we now? What had we awakened in that haunted place? As the laughter crescendoed, washed in an unsettling echo of our fear, I braced myself for what horrors were about to unfold. What was awakened? What lurked beyond that door? The air trembled with an unholy energy, the darkness seemingly alive, coiling around us. We barely breathed as the echo of the door slamming shut resonated, reverberating like a death knell in the desolation. The figures writhed, their shapes shifting in the darkness like smoke caught in a storm, their malevolent laughter growing louder, more insistent. "What do we do?" Brenda's brother gasped, panic flooding his voice as his eyes widened in terror, darting between the shadows and my face. "Just hold on," I shouted, trying to exude confidence I was far from feeling. "We need to find another way out." But the corridor seemed endless, walls looming closer, closing in on us like a predator stalking its prey. I turned, frantically shining the flashlight down the path we had come from, hoping the beams would cause the shadows to flinch. Instead, they advanced, an ocean of darkness swallowing the light as we took a step back. "Look," Brenda said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her finger trembled as she pointed. 3 grotesque figures emerged from the shadows, only inches away now. Their long arms curled unnaturally, fingers elongated into razor-like claws. Their faces, each more repulsive than the last, contorted with grins that revealed rows of jagged teeth, gleaming in the light. "We have to move," I urged, but movement felt like a distant dream. My legs felt glued to the ground, as though the shadows themselves had become chains binding us to this nightmare. The growl morphed into a series of shrill cackles, slicing through my mind like shards of glass. "You can't hide, little ones," one of the figures hissed, its voice a gravely whisper filled with malice. "You've called us here, what do you want?" I shouted, adrenaline pumping through my veins as I felt the fight-or-flight response begin to kick in. "Want?" The figure tilted its head, a grotesque mimicry of human curiosity. "Oh, we want to play, and you're the perfect players." With a flicker, the flashlight sputtered, the beam fading, plunging us deeper into darkness. My heart raced, the silence stretching like a taut wire, ready to snap. "Step back," I ordered, keeping my back against the wall, feeling the cool surface against my skin. I could almost taste the dread hanging in the air, tangible and suffocating. Suddenly, I fumbled in my pocket, heart pounding as I clutched the small knife I always kept for emergencies. Barely a weapon against the horrors we faced, but it was something. "If you want to play, then let us play," I muttered, bracing myself for confrontation, and just like that, chaos erupted. The grotesque shapes lunged at us, claws glistening wickedly. I swung the flashlight wildly, missing them but catching a glimpse of their horrifying features, twisted, contorted smiles stretching wide across their faces. "Run!" I screamed again, adrenaline coursing as I dashed to the right, navigating a new path away from the pursuing figures. My heart thundered, I could taste the metallic tang of fear as we tore through the oppressive dark, the laughter echoing behind us like a malevolent choir. "Where do we go?" Brenda yelled, begging for direction amid the chaos. "Any door, any exit. Keep moving." In the distance, a faint glow flickered, a dying beacon of hope beckoning us. I sprinted toward it, but the laughter became a cacophony, resonating from all directions, as if the very walls were mocking our desperation. Just as we reached the edge of the light, a massive shadow loomed behind us, a creature so grotesque it defied description. Its claws scraped the ground, echoing with a chilling finality. We were trapped, with nowhere left to turn. "Please!" Brenda cried, her voice breaking. "I don't want to die here." The shape paused, its eyes glimmering with an unsettling intelligence. "Then play or perish." What choice did we have? The darkness ebbed and flowed like a predator at our heels. And before I could answer, the ground beneath us shook violently, a warning that whatever lay ahead would demand a sacrifice. Would we defy it? What were we willing to risk? As I took a deep breath, the light flickered once more, revealing shadows creeping closer, ready to snatch us away. We stood at the brink, facing an unspeakable horror. What did they truly want? And how far would we go to escape? The darkness was all-consuming. It felt alive, pulsating with an energy that clawed at our sanity. The laughter echoed around us, wrapping us in a shroud of fear that tightened with every heartbeat. I was sure we were trapped. Those grotesque figures loomed closer, their laughter needle-sharp and sinister. "We need to find a way out," I shouted, fighting the panic rising in my throat. The beam of my flashlight flickered, illuminating the twisted forms that danced in the shadowy corners. They twisted and hovered just outside the light, reminding us we were not alone in this abyss. "Forget the games!" Brenda's brother yelled, taking a step forward, his voice filled with adrenaline. "Let us just push through." He grabbed my arm, and we all leaned together, pushing our way down that dark corridor. Whatever is behind us, it can't go on forever. But then a sharp chill shot through the air, an unearthly growl vibrating under our feet. The shadows thickened around us, responding to our fear, our hope dwindling with every second. "Don't look back!" Brenda yelled, her breath hitching as we rushed forward. I could feel the shadows clawing at my heels, and in that moment, I knew we had to escape or we'd be swallowed whole. Suddenly, a flicker of light appeared through the darkness, guiding us with delicate hands of hope. "There!" I shouted, pointing ahead. It looked like an old wooden door, slightly ajar, light spilling from within, promising safety. As we rushed toward it, laughter erupted behind us, a chilling soundtrack to our escape. It was taunting us. The noise grew louder, a cruel reminder that we were still hunted. "Hurry!" I cried, my heart racing. That we pushed the door open, the hinges creaking like an ancient warning. Inside, the world was bathed in a soft glow, a contrast to the chaos we had just escaped. It was a small, warm room filled with familiar decorations, reminders of happier times. "Is this real?" Brenda whispered, eyes wide, staring at the flickering lights like they were a thin veil between us and reality. "Part of me wishes it isn't," I murmured, taking cautious steps inside. It was eerily inviting, lulling us into a false sense of security. "But we can't stay here. Whatever those things are, they're coming." As if on command, the door rattled violently. The figures from our nightmares were outside, their laughter turning into a discordant symphony. "They know we're in here!" Brenda's brother shouted, panic slicing through the room. My mind raced. "Look for another way out!" I shouted, scanning the room. In the far corner, I spotted a window that hadn't seen daylight in years, jagged glass still clinging to its frame. "We need to go." We rushed over, but as we reached the window, more laughter erupted, crawling triumphantly through the keyhole. The room felt constricting, the air thick with dread. The shadows inched closer, and I could almost sense their insatiable hunger. With agility fueled by desperation, I pried at the window, letting hope guide my trembling hands. "Come on!" I urged, and just as I shoved it open, the shadow at the door lunged, nails scraping the wood. Oh God! Beyond the window was the blizzard, snow swirling violently, but it was our only option. One by one, we climbed through, the cold air hitting us like a slap. "Go, go!" I cried, falling out into the drifts. The snowy ground muffled our landing, but we had no time to rest. The laughter faded only to be replaced with a chilling growl that pushed us to move. We broke into a sprint towards the barn, its silhouette barely visible through the vicious storm. Behind us, shadows poured from the house, writhing shapes desperate to reclaim us. "Almost there!" I shouted, feeling fear gnaw at my heels as I pushed my legs harder. Brenda's brother grabbed my hand, pulling me forward as we stumbled across the treacherous ground. Finally, we made it to the barn, and I slammed the door shut behind us. The dark screamed against the wood, but for the moment, we were safe. Breathless, we leaned against the door, our hearts racing. "What the hell is happening?" Brenda gasped, collapsing onto a haystack. I don't know," I replied, shaking as the adrenaline began to fade. But then, a familiar sound echoed through the barn. Not laughter, no, this was softer, a faint cooing. We turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, Aunt Clara. "What?" Brenda whispered, an uncertain gleam in her eye. "Is it really you?" But the version of Aunt Clara that stood before us was still shadowy, features elongated and eyes dark with sorrow, a twist of despair etched into her face. "You've come for me," she said, her voice barely a whisper, thick with longing and pain. "No, we're getting out of here," I shouted, My instincts screaming that this wasn't the way to salvation. The shadows deepened in the barn, swirling dangerously, constricting around Aunt Clara. "No, please," she begged, tears spilling down her hollow cheeks. "I am not what I seem." The laughter returned, echoing in the recesses of my mind, urging us to embrace the chaos as our eyes flitted between her and the gathering storm. "Run!" I screamed, and we bolted for the nearest door, shoving it open just as the shadows lunged. The adrenaline surged as we stumbled into the snow once more, desperation fueling our frantic escape. "Don't look back!" I shouted, pushing forward as my heart pounded wildly in my chest. That we plunged into the storm, the laughter and the cries fading into whispers behind us. In that chaos, I felt hope ignite. That we fought blindly against the white fury surrounding us, adrenaline pushing us through unseen dangers, through chilling winds that tried to pull us back into the icy clutches of fear, brothers and sisters holding tight to the flicker of survival. We would not succumb. The price for our courage would be our will to escape. With each breath, we defied the night that sought to claim us. Together, we raced toward the dawn, leaving the shadows behind, rewriting our own story under a rising sun that promised warmth and peace. As we stumbled toward safety, a sense of purpose filled my chest. I knew we would be okay. We survived the night. But even with the promise of dawn, a lingering whisper curled in the back of my mind, teasing me with one word: escape. Even more than just a place, we had faced something that night, and in the end, it was ourselves we had conquered, and so we ran, for without each other, the shadows would never truly let go. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the channel, so you don't miss the thrilling and exclusive stories coming your way. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Did you see Aunt Clara coming back? What do you think awaits our heroes now? Join the conversation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of helping the channel grow.